Hello. How is everyone? I've got to the studio tonight and found a letter from Matt to say that he's not going to be able to attend due to factors, which I can't go into. He has been suspended on full pay, much to my dismay. Um, yeah, so it's just me for the last football phone-in of the season and our last EFL game for, well, let's face it, quite a substantial amount of time. And yeah, so if you want to join tonight and give us a call, email latixfootballphoning@gmail.com or visit our Twitter page at OFC and click the link for StreamYard and you can enjoy the cyber champagne and the virtual caviar for a little while. And just please be patient and we'll try and get you in and we'll all have a chat about a brilliant season we've had. And we can discuss return list, release list, who you want to release, who you want to return. We can talk about Tranmere and the upcoming game against Crawley. But again, if you are missing Matt, you can just have a little peek of him there if you like a bit of that. It's a bit of a creepy picture, I must say, because he is looking very, very suspect as he looks at me there with those eyes. Anyway, we'll move on. I'm going to bring in our first guest, Michael. Michael.
You all right?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. Thank you for joining us. How are you doing? You okay?
Yeah, good. Had a stressful week. I had a Ofsted in this week. School teacher, so I've had a couple busy few days, but doing all right now.
Right. So, did you manage to go to the Tranmere game?
Oh yeah. To be honest, I came back from the Tranmere game and I was quite, I enjoyed it in a way. I didn't watch much of the football, but I think it's just nice to see the fans very, we feel quite united at the moment. I know on Twitter there's the odd people, trying to get on the club side, but I think the majority of fans are really kind of behind what we want at the moment, which obviously Abdallah out. So it's quite good to see a Tranmere, I think there's a bit of jest, wasn't there, in the National League chants, but there's a bit of unity there as well.
Yeah, I went with my daughter Saturday at the front, and it was quite jovial at points, and then it was quite aggressive at points. Lighters, seats, bottles being thrown. Some fans who I spoke to, a couple of guys were annoyed about the National League chant saying, "We're not a joke of a club. We're not a joke of a club," and. Apart from the match, it was a pretty good day, wasn't it? The game in itself was absolutely the pits, weren't it? One shot on target.
Yeah, honestly, I can't remember the game, to be honest. I had a few drinks, but not too many. But I genuinely can't remember the game. I was only focused on just enjoying our last game, with mates and sing a few songs.
But given the support, was it 1,612? I think we took. A lot of Tranmere fans that I saw on Twitter were saying respect to the Oldham fans because, wow, it was amazing. You're the best fans you've had all season, and I know that the PTB have come out now with a full boycott for next season. I'm interested to understand your position. What are you going to be doing? Are you going to be buying a season ticket or not?
Yeah, so obviously I had a season ticket this year. I know they tried to kind of implement a bit of a boycott at the start of this season just gone. And I think it fell on deaf ears mainly because we'd missed football, a lot of us. I was desperate to get back to games after watching it on iFollow all season the year before. But I think this season, with me and my dad have just said, literally, we can't keep funding these people. I know that I respect anyone's views. Are you getting a season ticket next year, I believe?
I've got one, yeah. Matt hasn't, which is his own right. But again, I want to go to the away games and guarantee myself away tickets. But I am contributing the value of a season ticket also to the contingency fund, which, I'm fortunate enough to do that. Other people may not be, but I would say that if you can contribute to the fans forum and the contingency fund to the trust just to try and get things moving, then I would definitely go for that. But that's the thing. I want to go to the away games. I want to go home and away. I've got a few plans about why I want to go to home and away. So hopefully we can get something moving, because whilst it is going to be Maidenhead, Wealdstone, and etc., it's still going to be eventful, and still with the support that we have, it's going to be fantastic. So I just hope that the home games aren't too detrimental to our performances due to the fact that nobody's going to be there, and it doesn't give the club excuses to say, oh, well, you haven't been to the home games, we can't invest in the players, and Sheridan's not got the support, and then Sheridan gets sacked after 10 games because no one's supporting the team. It's really difficult.
Yeah.
It's a really difficult one, because there is a divide, and hopefully there is light at the end of the tunnel, hopefully. And I'd encourage anyone to get themselves down to the Fans Forum. I think it has sold out, but you can watch it via stream after the event or during the event. I'm not too sure. But yeah, definitely, hopefully see what the Trust have to say along with the PTB and move forward. I'm going to bring another guest in all the way from the Emerald Isle, Galway. It's Billy. He's on Twitter. He's contacted me. He works for for a newspaper over in Ireland. The name escapes me, so I'll let him introduce himself. Hi, Billy.
Hi, you can hear me okay there?
We can, mate. Yeah, how are you? You okay?
Yeah, doing grand now. I'm still wearing black after being over at the Salford game, but yeah, I probably should have been wearing black all season. But yeah, I like the jerseys, particularly yours, Dave. But
long sleeve match worn, Rick Oldham. Yeah,
nice, very good.
Yeah. If anyone else,
a whole selection of jerseys there. I was wearing black anyway. It must be psychological or something. After Salford, hang on, I'll just keep this on.
yeah. So tell us about the newspaper you work for, Billy, because we've had a few conversations.
I've been a journalist by trade. I've been working for the Irish Daily Star for donkey's years now, since about 2005 actually. So still tipping away at that, news editing there now at this stage. Just with regards to some of the coverage in Ireland that you might have seen, I put a link up on Twitter. My good friend Ian O'Doherty works for the Irish Independent, and he's actually a pretty well-known columnist over here. And well, to be honest with you, he's probably one of the leading ones. He's my favorite anyway. He's also my mate. But anyway, he's been to war zones and all sorts of places. So I thought, like, if you can call it post-pandemic, why not bring him to Boundary Park and see how it matches up to some of the places he's been to?
Well, I think it was worse, wouldn't it?
We got to Oldham about 1:00, as when I usually go with my mates. That's generally the time we get in, the way the flights work. And we walked about 25 minutes to Boundary Park. Ian complained about not getting a taxi all the way, but I wanted to soak up a bit of the early atmosphere. I'd say we were about 3/4 of the way through that walk, and he just went, I get it. He's, dare I say it, a Man United supporter, his boo. But I pitched to him. I said, me and my mates, most seasons going back for donkey's years, have had it over for one match a season. And everyone, I was with a group of 9 lads, including myself. Ian was the only one that hadn't actually been there before. A couple of lads had been there with me a few times. A couple of the lads had been there for games that were postponed. I made an awful mistake a few years in a row of booking flights in February. And we know what the frost is like in that little patch of the pitch. But anyway, to make a long story short, just to get back to your kind of newspaper question, Ian wrote his piece for the Irish Independent that hopefully kind of brought things to a bit of a wider audience at this side, because even over here, people of my age at least would think, they remember everyone's second favorite club. That's a bit of a cliche, but it certainly rings true to a certain extent. So he wrote his piece, and I think it got an okay reaction overall. I didn't address it in my paper, the paper I work for, because, to be honest with you, I'm still digesting it. It's nearly too personal for me. I wouldn't have been able to talk about it last week.
So how did you come to support Oldham then, Billy?
It's fairly straightforward in that half my dad's dad was from Grinnickers Road.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
His father and his father before him actually were from in and around that area. I visited the plot in Grinnicker Cemetery with my young lad when I was over the time before last. And when it kind of came to the point in your childhood where you identify with the team over here, as well documented, a lot of Irish people just go Man United or Liverpool.
Yeah.
I hadn't really, I was just kicking the football around myself, and kind of a lot of my mates were supporting Liverpool at the time. I was kind of veering that way. And I said this to one of the Push the Boundary guys at half time at the Salford match. I remember there was that one game where years ago where Old were 1-up against Liverpool for almost all the match, and I think they ended up blowing it. And I remember
sounds like Oldham, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I remember my dad being kind of forlorn about this, and me kind of about to go, yay, but then kind of just stop checking myself and kind of going, that really doesn't sit well with me. I have no connection with Liverpool whatsoever. I always like an underdog. And to be honest with you, there's no specific moment, but that's kind of one that comes to mind where I just went, this is my team. Yeah. And I've seen them in all 4 divisions. Unfortunately, downward trend. But
I know it's very sad that we're going to be in the National League. And Michael, do you remember your first game and how you came to support this glorious team that is Oldham Athletic that breaks your heart every Saturday?
Again, it's down to my dad. We live in Chadderton, not far from the ground now. But I think I've been going since I was about 4. I think I was one of the better behaved children. There's 2 of my brothers as well, and we all go to games. But I think I was a better behaved one, so I got a season ticket from 4-year-old. I must have sit and watch quietly, so to speak. Not so much nowadays, but yeah, I can't really remember from my first game. Must have been about 98 season, I reckon. So I saw a long time in League One before I actually saw us move leagues. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, we've moved downwards since then, but yeah, I think my first real memory, I was mascot against I think we played Chesterfield at home, and I think Carlo Corazin scored a couple. So that's probably my earliest memory, really, of being at Boundary Park.
Carlo Corazin, that takes me back. Flipping heck. Yeah.
I know. I think he was my favourite player at the time. So I think, when you meet your players and you shake their hand and, it's all this. And I remember my dad saying, make sure you get a couple of goals today, Carlo. And he scored a brace. So we're happy with that.
Should get him in managing now.
Yeah. And who was your favourite player, Billy?
I believe he had some comments about the pitch invasion that might have put me off 1%. But Andy Ritchie's always been my hero, footballer-wise, above even Ireland players like Roy Keane and John Sheridan, Ireland player. I saw Andy Ritchie score the first game I was at, a 3-3 draw with Coventry.
All right, yeah, I went to that one. That was probably one of my first with my dad. Tuesday night.
One of the best days of my life that I won't go into all the jigs and reels, but getting over, father-son road trip in a banged up old Ford Escort or whatever it was, it was just, and then like packed chatty end, we were getting hammered at the start. And I remember turning to my dad and saying, we're in for a hiding here. And then I think we went 3-1 up and then let 2 in again. But Andy Ritchie scored a penalty right in front of me. Andy Ritchie's always been, he set up Ian Olney, I think, for Olney's goal, if I remember that correctly. Andy Ritchie's always been like the one player that, through work, I've worked for a newspaper, you meet celebrities. I'm not enamored with celebrities at all. I could meet any celebrity and it'd be like, how's it going? Whatever. But if I met Andy Ritchie, I'd struggle. Same goes with Joe Royle.
I remember he came on the phone and he rang me up and I was just like, hi, it's Joe Royle. I just saw his number and I was like, oh yeah, whatever. I put the phone down on him. And it's just, I just put the phone down, and then he rang me back. He went, "No, it is Joe Royal." And then I was just like, I couldn't speak. And my missus is like, "What's up? Are you having a stroke?" Because I just couldn't, my mouth and my tongue wouldn't function, and I was just like, oh. But yeah, it was great, speaking. But you're just in awe of them. But they're just so down to earth. It's crazy, isn't it?
It's funny. The thread, the little trend of this conversation as well already is I can understand, Dave, why you want to buy a season ticket, because you said you're bringing your daughter.
Yeah.
Or reasons like all my memories are associated with my dad's, and I never met my grandfather. He died before I was born, but I feel like I know him because I've got a connection with where he was from.
Yeah.
So just sorry to just divert the conversation a tad, but
no, don't be daft. No, it's fine.
As soon as you were talking about wanting to bring your daughter and stuff like that, totally relate to that.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. It's like, a few people have said, and Matt, my co-host, obviously he was here, and now he's not. He's just he will appear here from time to time. But yeah, he thinks I'm wrong, but we're still mates, and we still get on with it. But I want to go to the away games because I want to do coverage of pretty much every game for something that I've got planned in the future. From our first season in the National League. I hope it's our only season in the National League, coming from what Shez has said, because he's adamant he's going to get us promoted, isn't he? Because he's going to make the signings. Do you believe a word of that, or do you think it's just sort of a statement pushed on Shez via the club to get more season tickets, or do you think he has agreed with the owners to say they've got to be my signings and they've got to be, that's the only way I'm going to take the job? Because it looks to me there's a bit of a, Sheridan went back to ask another year, and the club have just said, yeah, but there's something in me where it says it's got to be on these conditions and these conditions only. And do you think that's the case or not? Do you think it's just going to be the same old 10 games, 5 defeats, and then a new manager? Because no manager has lasted a season under the Lemsegums, which is, quite, obvious. The amount of managers that we've had in these 4 years is just ridiculous, isn't it?
But I think the whole thing is falling apart at the seams. I think walking away from Boundary Park there after Salford, like usually walking away from Boundary Park is a joyous experience, regardless of the result, because you don't go to see a win. A win's a bonus. It was so gutting and draining. I felt like I was leaving behind a place in rubble. So I think that maybe I think my guess is that behind the scenes there's complete and utter. Well, no, this isn't a guess. I think it's fairly obvious that behind the scenes it's a bit of a quagmire between who's in charge or whatever else. I think the one thing that they realized that they had is John Sheridan. I don't know John Sheridan's motives for staying on. He said what he said in the press that it's the love of the club and all that. I'm a bit of an old cynic. I'm not going to doubt a club hero, and I don't mind that he does stay on. My own personal view of that, I'm going to kind of fudge it a bit, is I actually struggle to say that I would even, well, of course I'm going to look out for the result, but I'm not going to keep that much of a track on how things are going on the pitch under the current ownership. I personally feel like I'm even going to disconnect myself from that. So I'd rather Sheridan was there to hold our hands as we fell to this all-time low and maybe even nurse us through the next fall. I doubt very much we'll rise anytime soon. I don't think anyone thinks about that. But
you got no hope whatsoever. I've got a glimmer, but it's a very faint glimmer. What do you think, Michael? Do you think Shez has stayed on and it will be his signings, or do you think there'll be still interference?
Honestly speaking, I genuinely don't know what's going on at that club at the moment. Like you said, I think it's just chaos behind the scenes. I was surprised at Sheridan's comment basically saying that he went to the club and said he will stay on. I thought that's a really weird kind of recruitment process. In terms of, I know I respect John Sheridan, but he's not done great towards the end of this season in terms of the defeats we've had. He's not got a great track record in the National League, and like I think I would prefer John Sheridan than some of the other recruits that they've got in recently. Thinking of some of the worst managers they've had. But realistically, I can't see us competing in the National League at the top end of the table with these current owners. I'm just hoping that there's got to be something that happens soon in terms of this coming to a head, really.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. I've just got this faint glimmer, but it's just that stupid hope that I have for Oldham Athletic that I've had.
It's a hope that kills you.
You have to have some sort of... There's always some fire in us somewhere, but you know, when I was walking away after the Salford thing, like I said, no one ever went over with me to see a victory or amazing football. That's not what we go for. We go for the whole experience, the club, proper football, what I call proper football. You know, Champions League football is all well and good to watch on the TV or whatnot, but you know, my mates don't come with me for that. But there's the famous quote that without the fans, Oldham Athletic is nothing. I think actually Oldham Athletic is nothing now, and all that there is left is the fans. All I got out of it, apart from really upset and angry after Salford, was the pleasure of meeting the fans, meeting people in the rifle range afterwards. Chap Patrick insisted on buying the whole gang of pints. You know, all the people we met were just so decent and so sound, and the real good supporters who opinions may differ and this, that, and the other. And, you know, one might buy a season ticket, one might not. But at the end of the day, we'll all sit around and we have one thing in common, you know, apart from a certain percentage that I won't even mention. That's
the thing, isn't it? A lot of people have just said, like Jim John Davis has said, he's probably at the moment the best person to manage the club. Cy Powers said, I agree. Who would we get? Who is any better? And I'm just going to bring Danny in. He's been waiting patiently in the caviar and the cyber champagne. He'll be coming through now. Just 1 second, guys. Hi, Danny.
Hi, Dave.
How's the green room? Loads of strippers and champagne and caviar, but you know, all right, yeah.
Yeah, sound, yeah.
So yeah, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Danny Fairbrother. Been a Latics fan 34 years now.
34 years of her.
Started off well, but it's just been a rapid decline ever since. Somewhat the last 4 years has been the fastest decline. It's horrific.
I'm going to ask you. I'm going to put out there. You have you got a season ticket for next season?
Of course I have. Me, the little one.
There you go. You see,
I'm trying to talk my wife into it as well, but she's adamant she's not. But she will. She will do. She will do. So I'm not saying I'm looking forward to it. I'm not, but I'm looking forward to some. I know I said at Forest Green Rovers I'm not doing any away days, me and Dave, but I'm going to do some.
You'll be there.
Yeah.
Well, are you going to do any away days, Michael? Are you going to try and get into any games next season, Billy?
I would. In fact,
go on, Michael. Sorry.
Well, I think I was saying this the other day. I said, you know, being in the National League, you know, it's pretty grim. Let's be honest. But in terms of football's ups and downs, isn't it? You know, we're Oldham Athletic. We're not expecting to be in the top division the whole time. Slipping down to the National League, okay, you know, it's rubbish. You know, it's pardon the phrase, but at the end of the day, it is where we are. But the problem I've got is that we're not down there from, you know, we're down there for one reason only, and that is the club ownership, in my opinion. So that's the kind of bugbear that I've got, that us being in the National League, it's all down to them, in my opinion. But I think in terms of going to games, you know, I'm looking forward to going to some away games, you know, some of the different grounds you go into. I think we need to rent some flats in London, by the looks of it, next year. So we can get, if we get someone chip into this.
Definitely get an Airbnb, Latics Football Phone in Airbnb going, you know, sort of like 8 people in one house. That'd be bad. But it'd be fun. I think it would be fun. But it's just, for me, it's the Saturday, Tuesday. The Tuesday night games are away at, you know, Maidenhead. I'll still go as much as I can, but it's just going to be, it's relentless because I've got a friend of mine who's a Stockport County fan. He said it's really fun for the first season because you go to all these different games and you're doing quite well. Stockport finished about mid-table and then they just dropped out of it because he had no investment. And that's my worry, that we'll probably finish about 10th. I hope we get to playoffs or get promoted. I really, really do. And there's always that hope that's going to kill me, but it just depends on who Sheridan signs and if he is allowed to sign who he wants, And that brings me on to just, Billy, are you going to try to get to any away games or home games?
It's still very raw after Salford. My mate Sean, who's been over and probably more trips than any of my mates today, was texting me about 4 days after we came back from Salford, suggesting various different away trips. I won't be going back to Boundary Park under the current ownership 100%. It's too sad. It's heart-wrenching. I might go back to Oldham, but I won't go back to Boundary Park, But yeah, no, I feel a bit better now than it's been a couple of weeks. I could probably my arm could be twisted into a away trip. I always thought the one away trip I've been at was Crewe away about 4 years ago. Under David Dunn, was 3 years ago maybe. And I remember thinking that was the worst football match I ever saw, but I didn't realise that was Real Madrid, Man City in comparison to, how further it was going to go. There was an away match many years ago under Graham Sharp, which was a pre-season friendly in Cove in Cork.
All right, okay.
Where I got to meet Nick Henry and Gunnar Halle and very hungover squad. Generally seemed to be enjoying all the tourist opportunities that Cork had to offer. Met a few good fans down there as well. So that was a 0-0 draw.
I hope there's a pre-season friendly. Because you remember they used to do the Isle of Man tournament, stuff like that. There is something like that, instead of a pre-season friendly at Ashton. I think there's one rumoured to be at Abbey Hay. You know what I mean? It's just like, just get to Ireland and do a Dublin weekender because you'd have everyone following, wouldn't you?
I remember the Ibiza.
Galway United.
Ibiza tournament. We played in Ibiza when I was 16, I think. 16, honestly.
Did you go?
No. But one of my neighbours, Ben Jackson, and I think Josh Weldon went as well.
Right.
They played 4 games over there. And apparently they were supposed to be doing it every year, and then it never happened, just like Latics. Big letdown. Typical. Yeah, now we look forward to Ashton United and Hyde and Stalybridge away.
Yeah. Galway United, my local team here that I also support, Galway United, played Oldham in the Isle of Man at one of those tournaments. I found out recently. I think the score might have been like, a 5-a-side, 25-12 or something by the end of it. But
still entertaining. Probably as many goals as Oldham have scored this season, that isn't it? Put together.
43, less than Mitrovic.
There we go. I'm just going to, as we're going into the National League, I've got a special guest of the NL Full-Time podcast, Chris Pratt, who is going to join us. Rick, I know you're waiting. We'll bring you in about a couple of minutes if that's all right. So we've got a thumbs up off Rick. So enjoy the cyber champagne and the caviar for now. But yeah, we're going to bring in Chris Pratt, who knows everything National League. Hi, Chris.
Hello, guys. How are you?
Are you okay?
Yeah, good. Thanks. Good.
Good stuff. Thanks for joining us. Do you want to introduce yourself about your podcast and tell us what it's all about? Because I know you know the National League better than anyone. A colleague of mine who I do commentary with, Luke Edwards, said you're the man in the know. So please fire away.
Yeah, great. Well, thanks for having me on, guys. So we've been doing the NL Full-Time podcast now for about 4 or 5 years. We cover the National League. We cover the National League North and South. We do it across the country. So we've got a guy who covers the South East for us, one in the Midlands. Obviously got me and Luke Edwards as well. He covers the North, and so we've got it all sewn up between us. We often get you'll find when you go in it, BT Sport do a really good job of covering it, so they often come on the podcast as well. So have a listen.
Yeah, we will do, mate. So, as we're going to descend into the National League, from what you've seen this season, and obviously the team don't talk about Stockport and Wrexham because we'll be sick. But no, I'm joking. Could you give us a bit of a flow of like the style of football, what we're going to look to expect, in the National League? Because it's no walk in the park, is it?
Well, that's the first point. Actually, it's not a walk in the park. It's a really decent league, and I would say, because I cover League Two a little bit as well, and I would say that the top half of the National League is potentially as strong, if not stronger, as the bottom half in League Two as well. There's some really, really strong teams in there. And what you've seen over the past few years is teams are actually now taking players from League Two, League One. There's a different wage setup, so there's no sort of restrictions or anything like that in the National League. So some of the teams are really strong. Like you say, about Stockport and Wrexham, but you've got teams like Notts County are still in there. They just signed Harry Arter recently.
Really?
Yeah, really. Yeah.
Is that the ex-Bournemouth player?
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah. So it is
Ireland as well, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
Wow.
So these teams you've got a lot of League Two teams in there. You've got your Grimsby's, you've got your Chesterfields, and they're all playing guys who could play in League Two at the minute. So I would say, and what you've also got is you've nearly got a full-time professional league there. I think what we say about the National League now is that it's not non-league football, so don't go down expecting non-league football. It is almost a full-time professional league, and even Altrincham have just gone full-time over.
Yeah, I saw that on Twitter the other day that they've finally this season, for the upcoming season, they're going to go full-time, aren't they? Which is
yeah, and don't let the names fool you either. Boreham Wood, they're full-time. They played, I know. But they played Everton and given them a good run for the money recently. So
knocked Bournemouth out, didn't they, as well? Didn't they?
Yeah, away.
Yeah.
So this is a strong league. I mean, you do look at the names, and you will have few away fans. I saw one of your fans tweeting that you might have there was 44. I think Boreham Wood took the other day somewhere. I can't remember exactly.
I think,
yeah, and it is. I mean, there is a bit of that. There's a lot of teams that are concentrated around sort of London and the home counties and around there as well. And so your Barnets, Maidenheads, Wealdstones, things like that. And they don't have a huge following, but you'll be surprised. You will get over 100, 200 for most matches, and the bigger clubs will bring a big following. The bigger clubs possibly bring 2, 3 sometimes, if it's a big game. So I wouldn't, you're not dropping into a real terrible standard of football. I know I'm probably the most unpopular guest that you've ever had on this podcast, and I take that and I accept that. But it's a decent standard of football. Yeah.
So in terms of the budget, our club came out last week and said that we're going to stick to the £1.2 million budget. Now, you look at the likes of Stockport and Wrexham who are signing. Like Wrexham signed a player from. Was it? I can't remember who it was, but he signed it for £500,000 in the January transfer window.
Yeah,
it's like you just got, looking at that budget. What do you have any idea of the budgets down there at the moment, or what the standard budget is for these sort of teams?
Yeah, I would say that's a decent budget, to be honest, for the division. I would say that your Wrexham and Stockport have just blown it out of the park this year, and they're absolutely desperate to get out of this league. And you've obviously got the Ryan Reynolds connection as well with Wrexham, and Stockport have got obviously a wealthy local owner as well. But for the rest of the league, I'd say that's probably a top half. You're looking at, if I had to rank it, maybe 7th, 8th, something like that.
See, that'll do for me. Positivity. That's what we want. That's what we want.
I think 17th is ambitious, to be honest with you.
17.
Remember all the people saying, drop down to League Two and regroup and bounce back up and everything will be rosy in League One. I think if we hold on to 17.
Yeah. Look, there's a history of teams going into the National League and they don't come out for a long time. And I think part of the key to that is you just have to accept where you are, because the teams that haven't done that and have tried to keep a League Two squad and of League Two players haven't necessarily fared very well. In fact, they haven't very well at all. And it's those teams who recognised, right, we need a team a National League team to get out of this. And whilst all the bigger clubs are buying players for League One, League Two, and things like that, some of the most successful ones have gone to the National League and looked at who's performed really well in the National League over the past few years and added them to the squad. And it's those teams that have done well. And if I'm right, I'm thinking that only Leyton Orient have come out quite quickly. I think it was the second season they made it out. But the rest of Wrexham have been there longer than anyone else, apart from Aldershot. So, it can be a league that's it's difficult to get out. And of course, there's only 2 promotion spots and 1 automatic as well. So it's going to be tough. I won't lie to you.
Well, you just killed the positivity for saying 7th and 8th, and then just no, I'm only kidding. I'm just going to bring Rick in because Rick has been waiting ever so patiently as well. But hi, Rick.
Hi, chaps.
You okay?
Yeah, good, thank you. Thanks for the ticket, by the way, on Saturday.
Oh, not a problem. That's fine. Did you get in okay?
Yeah, no problem at all. It was very smooth. So, it was excellent. Apart from the game.
Obviously. So Chris, just going back to your point then. So what is the, you've seen like these teams go up. What is the typical successful team? Do you need big centre-backs, fast wingers, 2 big lads up front? Or have you seen teams trying to play football and get out of the division in sort of a ticky-tacky sort of way? What do you think the key is to success to try and get out of this division?
You definitely need big centre backs. Yeah, that's true. And as as most of the teams are full time, these are the fit guys that it's their job to be fit. And so you do get teams with a lot of big centre backs. It's not. I wouldn't say it's not just knock it up to the big man and feed off the scraps. It's definitely not that. It's evolved certainly over the last 3 or 4 years. It used to be that 3 or 4 years ago. It's not that anymore. It's quite a fast, like the press, like a high press. A lot of teams are playing a high press now and a really quick. The players have to be mega fit.
Right.
So no, it's not. It's not just knock it up to the big man and feed off the scraps. Definitely, it's decent football. You have to play good football to get out. A lot of, I would say, there is a lot of get it out to the wingers and cross it for the big man. There is a lot of that, but because of that, there's a lot of 3-5-2s. Most teams will play wing backs, nippy wing backs.
Challoner plays that, doesn't he? Challoner's a big advocate of that, isn't he? And I think Gannon wasn't he, at Stockport?
Gannon tended to play more of a 4-2-3-1, which, to be honest, it's kind of phased out in the last couple of years in the league.
Okay.
So it's interesting. Sorry about that. My lad goes to school with Pete Wild's lad, so I see Pete Wild quite often. And therefore I've got a bit of an interest in Halifax. And I was really interested when they were on the TV the other week that Pete was talking about how they had a look in the summer about how they needed to build on the decent season they'd had last year. And he said they even went down to looking at the size of the pitch at Halifax and recognised that it's quite a big pitch. So they recruited based on players who had a lot of energy and could get up and down that pitch and around that pitch. And I thought that's somebody in non-league, without being disrespectful, who's got a million times better recruitment policy than we had. We've just basically watched a lot of YouTube videos and brought a lot of players in from French League Division 5. And it just shows a level of professionalism that's there. And we've got to very, very quickly compete with that.
I think that's going to be a massive shock, to be honest with you, to anyone who thinks that they're in control of Oldham Athletic at the moment. I think that there's nearly a stubborn naivety there. And I think it's going to, I hate to be the eternal pessimist, but I think it's going to really, I think we've got a struggle on our hands next season. I try to be more positive, but everything I'm hearing about a league up until recently and knowing we were heading there, didn't know much about, it's all bad news for Oldham Athletic.
What are your thoughts, Danny? Can you hear me, Danny? As he froze. Michael?
Yeah, I just worry about who's recruiting, to be honest. John Sheridan's been, appointed as manager, but is there really a recruitment process in place? Do they actually have any idea about the players in the National League? I'd hasten to say that some fans would be more, better inclined to recruit some players than the owners in charge at the moment, because they just don't seem to have any idea in terms of they had no idea about League Two players when we came down to League Two. It only took Keith Curl to actually come in to actually recruit some players that were capable at that level. We got lucky with, I think, a few loan signings the first couple of seasons, but I just don't see that happening again and again. As you've seen with the loan signings this year, they've been atrocious. We had Bowden, the lad Batach from QPR. They were non-existent. Non-existent.
Yeah, that Batach was awful. Bowden wasn't great. Alex Hunt did well for Grimsby, but just couldn't do it for us. And I thought it's probably because he was more of a playmaker, and Callum Whelan it's just too lightweight. So you sort of need that sort of quality midfielder with the yard dog in the middle, like a Sheridan Duxbury from back in the day. You need like a sort of pick your pass sort of midfielder who can spray it out wide, and then the other guy mopping up the scraps in the middle and just winning the ball. But yeah, I'm out of the players that we've got. I've did a return and release list because we're going to find out this week. I think Sheridan said Mikey Fondop was played at that level for Chesterfield. We had him until the end of the season. Now he looked very, very good until he got injured, so I would return him. Rodgers in net. He's steady, safe pair of hands because he didn't play the full season and he did quite well. Hart, for again, although he's a bit of a bogey player because he got Southend relegated and then we got relegated with him in the squad, but take superstition out of it. Jordan Clark, if he would stay, and then Benny Couture's under contract, but I think he's sold to Burnley. And Harry Vaughan, is he going to be too lightweight? Is it a league for kids, Chris? Would you say for young kids? Is it quite a forgiving sort of league, or is it more the experience now sort of play that you need to get out of there?
I think there's room for both. I think if I was in your position, I'd be looking at around. I wouldn't be looking at any kids, to be honest. I'd be looking at sort of your mid-20s. I'd be looking at you guys who've been there and done that. And funny you mentioned the point about the manager. The teams that have been successful have had managers who know the division, and that's that's absolutely crucial in my book. Now, I know that I respect the fact that John Sheridan's there and he's a legend and everything, but he's going to have to get to know that division quite quick. And even if you bring someone who knows it onto the coaching staff, or I can't overstate how important I think that will be. Players who know the division and teams who know the division go up a lot quicker.
Ches was there with Chesterfield, wasn't he, at that level? I don't think he lasted. I don't think he did particularly well, but I think he was down there, wasn't he, with them for a while?
Fourth from bottom when he got sacked.
Yeah,
which is the only way he's up, hopefully.
Yeah, he was. I mean, at the time, in fairness to him, there was a lot of things going on at the club. And
Dave Allen left him in a lot of debt, didn't he, with the stadium as well? To be fair.
Yeah, so they've had to rebuild, and they've now got a fan majority share, I think, or something like that, and they're powering back up the leagues until. You probably don't know the thing. There's been a bit of drama with Chesterfield this season.
With James Rowe, he's at Fylde now, isn't he? I would have had him, mate. He would have been a decent. Obviously, other than his off the field activities, which have been, quite not very nice. But he knows the division, doesn't he? He knows it well. But he's signed a 3-year deal at Fylde, hasn't he, in the National League North? And they're flying, aren't they, Fylde?
He has just recently, and then Fylde, they're another one that you've probably thought, who are Fylde? But Fylde nearly got promoted to League Two a couple of seasons ago. They missed out in the playoffs. So yeah, he's there. They've got a good bit of backing. They're in the National North at the minute. They could come up through the playoffs, but
I've seen that. Yeah, because Gateshead and Brackley, isn't it? It's going to be between one of them two, isn't it? And I hope it's Gateshead because I fancy a nice weekend in Newcastle. That'd be good.
Well, yeah, exactly. Well, Gateshead are now automatic.
They got promoted the other day, I think. Didn't they?
Oh, they've been promoted officially because I know it was quite close, wasn't it, between them and Brackley?
Yeah.
Mike Williamson's the manager there. He used to play for Newcastle himself, didn't he? And I watched him early on in the season against Bradford Park Avenue, and they've got some good players. You know what I mean? They're a very physical side, big at the back, and then they've got this lad up front who's absolutely phenomenal. He's the really athletic side, really pacey and very dynamic. They battered Bradford Park Avenue about 4 or 5-0. Yeah. So there's no walkovers, in the league whatsoever, because after watching the season we've just had, hopefully we'll have a clear out, but we've got to get the right players in, haven't we? What's your thoughts, Rick?
Yeah, definitely. I think we've got to do exactly what we've talked about. We've got whatever recruitment policy we've had previously has just got to go right out the window, and we've got to look at people that have performed at that level, and more importantly, who are willing to come and play for us. Because I think that's going to be a problem. I think we forget that the reputation of the club must be in tatters. If you were a player and Oldham Athletic was in for you, would you come thinking that, well, am I going to get my wages paid? There's fans protest. I'm obviously on the side of the fans with this, but all that kind of noise that's around the club at the moment is it particularly attractive? I mean, it may well be just because of, our history, but my suspicion is that I don't think we're a massively attractive proposition at the moment.
That's a really good point, because if you just look back at Oldham Athletic, that say when I fell in love with the team, it was always like we attracted like Dennis Irwin from Cork, for example, proud Irishman like myself. He let go from Leeds. We brought him in. We brought in all these players and used and galvanized our status in order to achieve success. Now you can't even do that. You can't go, look, we're a plucky underdog. Let's try to, get in players that have been rejected elsewhere and mobilize them like that and fight for the cause. I think we're ramshackle, especially over the last 4 years, and that's, again, sorry to be so miserable, but that's why I think we're going to struggle. I don't think we've anything attractive to offer players coming in.
Well, players at this level, they're not well, even in League One and League Two, yet they're not millionaires, are they? They've got bills in the same way that all of us have. And if you think there's a chance that you might go half the season without getting paid, I think that's a big factor. If you can go to, I don't know, Boreham Wood, that seems a relatively stable football club going in the right direction as an example, and then you hear they're interested or Oldham Athletic's interested, where would you go, in all honesty? That's a worry for me. I think my concern is we're going to end up scraping the barrel like we did last summer. We're going to be ending up doing the same thing again.
Young players, I would imagine, wouldn't be that enamoured by the history of Oldham Athletic when it's in the 5th tier. They'll just be looking at the... I mean, sorry to be so pessimistic again. But...
yeah.
So in terms of clubs that have in turmoil that went down, look at Southend, for instance. Like, this is a question for you, Chris. They've had a really hard season, haven't they, this season, because they've had fan boycotting, and they last time I looked, they were 12th. I think that was a couple of weeks ago. But Kevin May, ex-Oldham, I don't know if he's still in charge, but he was in charge, and the fans have now they're in a transition period where they're trying to take over the club and buy it off the owner. And how's their season fare? Because I can see ours being quite similar to that. If we're, there's all this animosity around the club.
Well, 12th is brilliant for them, and I'll tell you why. Because at the start of the season, after the first 10 games, they were right down there at the bottom of the league, and there was protests. He was on the pitch all the time, and there's other clubs who supported them as well. I remember a game against Chesterfield where, Chesterfield fans just stood back and gave them a round of applause because there's a lot of clubs who've been in this situation down there. Southend turned it around and they went on a run of about 11, 12 matches unbeaten, believe it or not. So where they are now, they've tailed off again towards the end of the season, but they had a chance of playoffs about 6 or 7 weeks ago. But yeah, I mean, I can see the similarities with the situation that they're in at the minute and yours. But yeah, I mean, 12th isn't too bad for them. And I mean, there's other football league clubs struggling down there. Barnet were there not a huge amount of years ago. You got Yeovilles who were in League One. So yeah. I think what happens, and Chesterfield. So what happens with a lot of these clubs is they just carry on that slippery slope. And it's halting that's and it's all those things that we've talked about the players from the National League, about people in Nous from the National League. You need a lot of those things to be in place. York City, they dropped through to National League North quite quickly, as did Stockport County, and it took County something like think it was 6 or 7 seasons to get back out of that division. So, you know, I'd say Southend, where they are at the minute, they'll be quite happy with that, I would say, at the end of the day.
I went to the when they were going on that run, the 23 unbeaten, when Stockport County played Chorley, and I think they got beat 3-1. And Stockport were on this massive run, and because my mate's a Stockport fan, we ended up getting tickets in the Chorley end, and like they had the likes of Matty Warburton, who's a teacher, but by goodness, he could score goals in the National League North. And then I think he went to Northampton, and now was he at Yeovil for a bit? Now I think
he's actually with Pete Wild now.
Oh, is he? All right, okay. But these are the things. These are the trials and tribulations that players they could just leave a club on a Wednesday and play for another club on the. Is it like within 5 days, like a 5 days notification period, isn't it, where they can just release players? And that's my worry for all. They're just going to just sort of sign these players on like week-to-week contracts, and we're just going to have all these offshoots and all these players that are just getting like a month-to-month pay as you play contracts, because you know Mo he's in his element trying to play Championship manager. So it's having this stability, isn't it? Because that's what can happen, can't it? You know, you can sign a player on a Wednesday, they can play on the Saturday, and then they could be released the following Saturday and be at another club. It's quite turbulent, isn't it, down there? Because there is no real regulations on transfers, is there?
Yeah, I mean that can happen. It does happen a little bit, but it doesn't happen as much as you might think it does. And the teams that, apart from your Wrexhams and Stockports, who, to be honest, they've just bought a lot of players and they just keep putting new ones in all the time because you keep buying better and better players. But apart from those ones, a settled squad, the ones with a settled squad, the teams who are below that Stockport and Wrexham level, they're the teams who tend to do a little bit better.
There's been nothing that we've seen that indicates that not to mind a settled squad, but to stop the decline. That's my major worry, ongoing for multiple years. That it's. I tweeted the Oldham Times reporter today, when she was asking people's take on things, and I'm just always taken aback by the club's ability to invent new ways to make things worse. That's started as a quip and has become a factual observation. Preaching to the converted here in many cases, but there's been no, apart from one of 20 odd statements saying we're keeping John Sheridan, and obviously they hope to sell a few season tickets off the back of that. And even that in itself is debatable, whether that can bring any stability, not to mind stop a decline or pull a handbrake. If I was to, I'm not a betting man because I'm rubbish at it, but if I was to bet, and this would be a bet I'd nearly put money on in the hope that it wouldn't work out, I think that we're in trouble next season.
Yeah. What
are your thoughts, Rick? Position next season?
I think we'll be lucky not to drop down. It just depends what happens over the summer, doesn't it? But my fear is we can quite easily drop out of this league into the National League North. I can see that as a scenario. It just depends who does the recruitment. What are we allowed to bring in? I don't believe for 1 minute we've got a £1.2 million budget for next season. I just don't believe that. I can't see where that money's coming from. Where are we getting £1.2 million from? There's no solidarity payment. I can't believe that Abdallah is going to put his hand in his pocket and find 1.2 million from somewhere. So I think if we can survive this league next season, finish somewhere our usual place, 17th, I think that'll actually be a result next year. And then the worry is, of course, as we've said, it just seems to become increasingly difficult then to bounce out of that league. So that's my fear. In the best case, Shez gets in who he wants. It sounds like his style of football could actually be quite suited to that level. You know, get the ball forward quickly, get it wide, get a cross in, get a big man on the end of it. It could be quite well suited. If we get a bit lucky with the recruitment, you just never know. But I think all of us, and probably because we've been brought up on pessimism with Latics pretty much, we probably all fear the worst slightly.
What about you, Michael?
Yeah, like you said, I think it's all about survival next year. I think the main focus is making sure we have some new owners in charge as soon as possible. You know, until that happens, there's so many other factors that can affect where we'll finish. But I think I'll just be happy with them, you know, survival, not going down again, because like you said before, you look at all the clubs that are rebuilding in the National League, but there's also been some that have dropped even further. And I just hope that we don't have to rebuild from the National League North. So, the quicker these owners go, the quicker, the better for us, I think.
Chris, what are your predictions for the mighty Oldham?
Well, it's difficult to say because it's difficult to know how you're going to approach it. I would agree that a mid-table would be good, would be a good result, and I think, and then get used to it, and then build the next season. I am familiar with your ownership situation. I've covered Oldham in the last few years a few times, so I'm aware of what happened there and what have you. So, yeah, I think your best case scenario will be to consolidate mid-table, get used to it, work out what you need to do to get in the playoffs the season after, and that's best. But yeah, it's not impossible that if you get off to a bad start, it's difficult to get back out of it.
Well, I think we're going to win it. No, I'm joking. No, God, blind faith, flipping heck. No, I think we will be pushing for the playoffs. I think Shez will get it right. I think our away support will carry us through, because if we can just try and do the best at the home games with the lack of support, and hopefully get a few wins and build up that support, although we are boycotting, if we keep on winning our away games with our support, because I think that's a bit of a key to it, because my mate who supports Stockport said away support, you can turn it into a home game anyway. You know what I mean? And if I were the club, and I'm not trying to promote the club or trying to tell them how to do the commercial side, but there is rumours that they're going to do away season tickets because of the lack of uptake on the home season tickets, which is really bizarre. But it could happen just to be a money spinner. And if I was knowing people that are going to boycott, I would be doing what Leeds do and do away season tickets. Sheffield Wednesday do it, and they turn over revenue of about 2 to 4 million. Sheffield Wednesday on away season tickets only. If there was away season tickets, would you buy one, Rick?
No, just for the simple reason that money's going to the owner, isn't it? So I take the point. There's going to be some grounds where we're literally going to get probably 400 or 500 tickets, whatever it might be. And it's going to be a struggle to get in. But I think an away season ticket, if the money's going to the Lemsagams, and I'm literally not interested, I'm just not going to get one. And that probably means I won't be going at all next season, because my plan would be to do aways rather than home games until they've gone. Yeah. So for that reason, I mean, under normal circumstances, I might be interested, yeah, but under the current circumstances, no.
What about you, Michael?
Yeah, I think as a fan base, if they offered that, I think we'd have to kind of unite on the fact that we wouldn't want to do that. I think, we should all push. Obviously, a lot of us will want to go to away games, but at the end of the day, we can't be funding. These guys are just trying to get as much money as they can. So we shouldn't, the quicker they're out, like I said before, the better we can get our club back. So we can't be funding these away season tickets personally.
Rob Walker makes a good point. Playing us will be like everyone's cup final. And there will be a bit of that, won't there?
I think that's a bit patronising, to be honest. I'm not sure. I mean, there's been some big clubs down there, as we've discussed, haven't there? There's been Bristol Rovers. They've got Notts County there. These are clubs that are every bit as big as us. I get that there will be a bit of a bounce there, but I think a lot of these sides now are actually used to playing clubs that are dropping out of the Football League. Admittedly, we're the first Premier League former Premier League club that have dropped down.
Yeah, I think Scarf Begera were a podcaster with Stockport County podcast, the good guys, saying that there will be most teams scalp as they're found. So
that's an unusual position, isn't it? My God.
I know it's going to be a difficult one, isn't it? It's going to be an interesting season. And as I say, it's definitely going to be worrying, but I think we'll be all right under Shez. In Shez, we trust. I do. I think if he can just sign who he wants, keep Mo out the way, and we might make a bit of progress, and hopefully, even if we get the playoffs, imagine the FA Vars Trophy. Let's look positive and maybe get to Wembley, and then lose in the last minute to a volley by a curly-haired guy in a red shirt by sticking his leg out. That'd be devastating, but. A nice Wembley trip. We won't say no to that because we're going to be in London after bloody time anyway, aren't we? Next season with the away games. But yeah. So we are on the hour. It sounds like Chris Morris, that, doesn't it? On the hour. It's not that. But again, guys, have you got any final thoughts on people who we should release, return? Rick, who do you think we should be keeping?
I'd be tempted just to clear the decks because, as we said, I think we're going to need a particular type of player to flourish and do well in the National League. So I think we will see Vaughan and Couto going just because we need to raise some money from somewhere, and I think maybe that's a sacrifice that we have to make. But I wouldn't be particularly bothered if we saw a lot of them disappear and we just clear the decks, let Shares bring in who he wants and start again, and then hopefully we've got a chance of a better season.
Is there nobody you'd return whatsoever at all?
I'm a bit controversial, and it's going to be definitely controversial. I would be quite tempted to keep Nicky Adams just because, and I know this is really controversial amongst Latics fans, but I do think he's put some decent crosses in, and there's been literally nobody on the end of it. And I think with a striker at that level who put themselves, even Fondop possibly, somebody to get on the end of that, I think we could cause problems because he can put some quality crosses in. He's not done it enough, but it's there. You can see it. But honestly, I think we probably just need to start again. Just clear the decks and start again.
Release the owners and retain our club.
That's a good outcome. Yeah,
Michael, who would you return?
I think I echo them. I think at the end of the day, I wouldn't be disappointed to see them all go. Of course, you can see the qualities in some of the players in keeping them, but I just think a clean slate would do us the world of good. I personally, I think Couto and Vaughan are not going to be suitable for the National League, so they need to be sold, get as much money as we can for them, and go from there, really. I think, obviously, there's a couple of players I wouldn't mind keeping, but I think it'd just be good just to get rid of.
Right. Billy?
Retain the wonderful fan base, the great supporters that that I shared a few pints with at Salford that you're apparently not allowed to do next weekend, but good luck with that. Release the owners and batten down the hatches. Player-wise, I just again I struggle. I just to even come to terms with what I saw and the drop in standard over the few years since I was there before. But I don't mean to be a cynic, but just I think we need a clear deck and to rebuild from scratch, and that includes the owners, obviously.
And you have you seen Latics this season at all, Chris? Have you seen any games?
I haven't seen them this season, no, so I can't comment on that, unfortunately.
Well,
what I will say is you'll see a lot more of them on the TV because BT will have them on 7 or 8 times. So there you go.
Oh, good. How much do they get paid? How much do they get paid for a game off BT? Is it like 20 grand a time? So like that?
I'm not sure, to be honest.
I think I read somewhere it's a lot less than that. It might even be as low as $5 grand a go. Right. It's not. I think that's what I read, but I remember reading that and thinking that's a shame because that could have been a bit of a revenue stream for us next year. But I'm not sure it's everything that we think it's going to be.
Well, me and Matt have got to enter some contract negotiations for next season because we are out of contract on the Latics Football Fawning at the end of this week. Matt, due to his disciplinary issues, he is it's quite precarious. I think he's in a bit of a Sam Hart sort of situation. I'm more of I think of a Fondop, whether I want to stay or not. So would you return us if we came back for next season, guys?
That's a yes for me.
Yeah. Rick?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think you should stay on, guys. Yeah, I think you should stay on.
Yeah. Well, on that note, and we'll just bring Matt in to say goodbye as well. There he is. Sorry, Chris, to cut you off. But yeah. Thank you all to all who've watched over the seasons, and thanks guys for joining us tonight and who's watched all the way through the season. We really appreciate all the comments, all the abuse on Twitter, all the emails. It's great to get involved with all of you. And Chris, thank you so much for giving us an insight to the National League. And if you just want to plug your podcast again, that you do it now.
Yeah, it's the NL Full-Time Podcast. You find us at NL Full-Time on Twitter.
And I'll come on as a guest anytime to talk about the plight and the the plight of Oldham, no problem. But guys, thank you so much, and we'll see you all next season. And keep the faith. I know it's hard. I know it is hard, but really do keep the faith because we will be back up there one day. Thanks very much, guys. Take care.
Cheers.
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 The Latics Football Phone-In is hosted by me, Matt Dean.
And Dave Bradley.
And is brought to you live every Thursday from 7 till 8 by the Boundary Park Alert System podcast.
Oldham's only weekly football podcast.
Out every Monday at 7 a.m. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel.
youtube.com/the Boundary Park Alert System.
And follow us on Twitter.
At OAFC Phone-In and OAFC Podcast.
We need you.
Yes, you.
On the show.
Email us at laticsfootballphonein@gmail.com.
To join us live next week. The show is available to stream on YouTube now, and it's all there.
Stats, facts, and super attacks.